execution based again for KT Rollster. How do they play this? How well can they execute this comp that is based around the Samira once more? This is Hybrid's now 9th game of it, I believe.
Is it? No, I thought you said before.
No, then this must be 10. This is 10. Already. It's 10th game.
I think you said he played 9 and then he picked it.
He was 5-2 coming into this. So if he played it both games before, that last game would have been his 9th game, and this will be his 10th. Okay. He was 5-2 today. He is now 5-4. Oh no, 6-3. Sorry. God, I can't do stats anymore. Cancel it. Cancel the stats. Cancel the stats.
No more math. Stop doing math on stream. Oh god. Well, we're just about ready to hop into this one. The comp on the side of Afreeca, you mentioned it's very, very standard kind of meta thing going on there. The set in the mid lane, we're seeing it a bit more and more. We saw Faker play it today already. Annoying for players in the middle. What is going on here? Uh-oh.
This is my Little League games.
No. He doesn't have Smite. Oh, it's so sad. He was like 3 seconds away.
This is terrible.
Smite it down. Yeah. I mean, he's going to be okay from here. Right?
I mean, he's not going to die, but he is... he's in a really uncomfortable position.
Treatment right now.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel good.
That was, okay. This is a bridge too far, Blank. He is actually going to try to Smite steal it.
Yeah. Looks like he did not. Oh, he did Smite something. We're watching the trade up in the top side, so he may have taken the red, but he dies anyway, and Keen wins the trade under his own turret in the top lane. This is just a disaster now for KT. Nothing is going right on their very aggressive
trade back the kill on the top side, which might be our replay here. Yeah, this is...
Alright, we need these replays.
Like, because, like, this is actually where he buffers the stun coming through, then has a flash, and then just walks back, hits the last auto, and he handled it extremely well. The buffer on the stun actually gave him a little bit of wiggle room there. As this is what happens here. I'm not entirely sure, like, this is where we looked away. And... okay, he's smited, but, like, the damage output is too much early game. And it was fairly successful until it wasn't.
What's going on here? Hybrid's just caught out. He does have his flash, but he wants to hold on to it for as long as possible. We had a W come out. There's an engage up on the top side. Dread is diving onto Doran here. He gets incredibly low, and Dread will get the last hit. And at the end of the day, Dread, he gets so much pressure onto him in the early game, and now he's 2-0.
The top side here is actually just... I mean, this is not what you want in Aurelia versus the Gnar.
They're just going to go for it, and they're pretty tanky. I don't know if they're tanky enough yet, and it's pretty rough to lock down in Aurelia. You can see they're immediately going to turn on to Keen here. Dread is nearby, and Fly is even going to go down underneath the turret. This game is just absolute chaos right now. KT are getting in there, Dread. I don't know if he can do anything. We got an engage on the bottom side, too. Hybrid is going to have the one last auto hit him as the Kai'Sa was able to stack that up.
Make it a lot harder for him to deal with those last hits there. So this is just a really hopeful engage here, because like you said, it's difficult to lock down Doran in this case, and he's extremely mobile. They're under a turret, and the sleep onto Keen means he actually can't be relevant in the fight anymore. And Yukal rotates up quickly, matches the rotation, and then it's like... that's the end of it. Dread stays, hoping maybe he could trade one back, but we know what happens in the end.
They saw this coming a mile away. I mean, there was a ward. They saw Fly. So they were like, okay, everybody run to the top lane. And it just turns out to be pretty straightforward.
Yeah. This ends up being Hybrid getting caught and trying to take an aggressive rel trade. Talking about the Alistar.
Yeah, you could see they were trying to bait it a little bit, but the Alistar was a bit away. Let's see if Doran bites the bait, if he actually goes in here onto Keen. Absolutely he does. As Dread is also here up in the top side. There's the flash forward. As the Aurelia will just be burst down. Not really much else to say there. Blank trying to help out as much as he possibly can. And doesn't amount to too much. He'll just have to run away there as a kill comes in, and now Blank in a pretty awkward spot. They're trying to bait him in. Keen going very far forward. Fly rotating on over. The wallop is going to land, pulls Yukal out of the fight, but they have enough damage to take out the Gnar anyway. As now we got a little bit of a 3-on-3, and we got a 1-on-1 on the bottom lane that does go the way of the Samira, I suppose. The engage in the enemy jungle doesn't work out as Yukal will be taken out. Blank has to Zhonya's as well.
Aggressive skirmish here. KT are much healthier and much more equipped to take this fight.
Blank is pretty low, though. I wonder if they can get that
All hands.
big phase breaker, rather. He gets a lot of them in there, but where is the follow-up? Doran is getting so much damage done as finally he's able to frontline. As Blank will survive. They don't have the damage to take him out. They have to dive through way too much, and KT will win the fight.
That, you know, can become very fed early on and become powerful in mid-game. Like, Victor ends up being way better late, but if UCal gets really strong from all these skirmishes, then suddenly, like, Afreeca can't win any mid-game fights. Just hold that thought.
Oh, here we go. Bang just gets jumped on here. Crash down is good, and so is the Inferno. Comes in there, locks him down. Doesn't look like we have the Unbreakable Will this time for the Alistair, so he's just going to be an unhappy cow. Sadly, being sent out to pasture. Down he goes.
Sent Blank right over to Dread, but you're not going to be able to push anything further here.
Dread is pretty fed, but Blank is even more fed, actually. He has 7 contributions.
Fly?
As we're just getting in there. Fly is just a monster tank right now on this set. He is going to whack some faces with the Haymaker. A giant spear onto Blank, but here comes the Aurelia. Massive stun onto Doran means that he cannot follow up, and that is Keen getting in and smacking 2 guys into the wall and making a huge fight here for Afreeca as they absolutely slap down KT.
Keen finally gets the wall up he was looking for. Then he ends up getting a massive shield and haymakering in, and Zeus just cannot live through this. There's just no way. Then you see the turn. Doran's like, okay, I'm gonna Vanguard's Edge in. I've got so much damage. But if you don't secure a kill here, and Hybrid doesn't have S rank, you can't keep fighting. And then Keen chases because he knows, okay, this is up. He's just going to Stride Breaker in, and there's no escape, right, anymore. There's no way out. But if you have S rank, if you have the and Afreeca, I mean, besides the set, they don't have strong engage. They're going to try to use it here.
Yeah, Set can kind of just run at you. Fly is going in there 1v2. He's got Lahens with the massive flank. Where is the rest of KT?
So slow to rotate.
Everybody is just so out of position. Doran TP's all the way up to UCal up in the top side. Lahen's gonna miss that knockdown. We got fights happening, a 2-on-2 on the right side here. The S rank is popped on the right side. Lahen's trying to tank on the left as in goes Doran. Gonna miss his stun, and Hybrid's getting a lot of value actually on the right side of this fight. But let's take a look at the top side here as we zoom in. They're gonna bully Bang and actually tank him out here, and not able to do enough damage on the Kaisa at the end of the day. And this very spread out 5v5 is actually going to favor KT as Dread on the run. He's going to get flashed on here, but he is in Italy in a bush, so
yeah,
we'll be able to get away.
If I could just kill either of them, then we could 5v4 this, but you can't kill either of them. Teleport coming through.
Here we go. Speaking of being relevant, we got the TP coming in, and Keen can't go 1v2. We got the Kaisa, though. Bang is able to get into that back line. As flashing over the wall is Keen, but in goes UCal, and he will get that kill actually with the Leandries just barely.
The damage.
As now Bang is trying to get on in there, and all these Zhonyas are getting so much value for the side of KT. As now Doran, all of a sudden, he's back at full health, and KT will be able to win this fight right before the Infernal. We can win 5v5s as long as we have lockdown, as long as we fight front to back. Let's see if it works out. We got the spear coming in. They're going to burst down Zeus immediately, but the crash down comes in, and take a look at UCal's position, and the S rank comes in, does way too much damage, as we see trying to get on top of Keen here. They will eventually be able to take him down, and Afreeca will be routed and pushed out of this fight.
I think a lot of this game goes to Afreeca trying to speed up the early game, but failing to find value. You can see how much damage Dread does. I mean, he is very fed, but there's a Baron between him and the rest of the team.
Yeah, and there's also a team between him and the...
UCal isn't even afraid anymore.
Alright, let's see how this goes. They're looking to get Zeus.
He wasn't
pretty
in range.
caught out here. What was that? He immediately just goes down, and now Blank is getting caught out here. Could this be the turnaround for Afreeca? We have the showstopper coming in as finally Bang is gonna get a good team fight into that backline. Doran is in fact hunting him down, but Bang stays alive. He will be taken out by the Aurelia. Can Doran turn this fight around? Hybrid gets a massive Inferno trigger in the backline and is able to turn this fight on its head. And it looks like KT have finally have been able to put an end to this game.
There was so many worries going into that fight after Zeus was picked, right? He just wasn't in range to get the tether, to get the stuns off. He was playing very greedy. He's picked, but the damage output and the outplays from Doran in that fight were absolutely insane. The damage output for KT is just too much. You cannot win the longer fight. And that fight was too long. They got the kill on the Zeus, but they weren't able to get like 3 more follow-up kills. They were reliant on Bang's damage. It was too slow. The burst was real, and KT are going to close this one out to get a lead, right? Because Afreeca played this so hyper-aggressive in the early game and tried to shut everybody down. And they fed Doran and Yukal too much. And also, eventually, Hybrid. And the damage is real. I mean, look at the damage charts. Like, KT's, they didn't have a lot of frontline, but they had a lot of damage.
Yeah. And I feel like, especially when Afreeca just began to run straight into them and Bang kind of isolated himself, it was just pretty easy for them to pick apart the pieces. Like, their comp is so good at that, right? The Samira can 1v2, the Aurelia can easily 1v1, let alone 1v2. And so many of those fights were just so broken up and all over the place.
KT Rollster will be able to upset the middle of the pack rank here in the LCK. KT will close out the night with a win here. Afreeca Freaks was never defeated by KT Rollster last summer, but things are now shifting, moving on to 2021. And we saw 4 bans going over to Drat's jungle champion pool. But Afreeca still had the pick Italy open, so that was not a big problem. But looking at KT Rollster, they had Lilia, Victor open, because even though they had a lot of other picks open, such as Syndra and Orianna, but I guess they are still relying on a lot for Yukal's damage output. Orianna and Syndra, let's say they were on the opposite side of the map. It doesn't really go down to the same kind of storyline for Yukal to push lane that hard. But Afreeca this time around wanted to try this Nidalee plus set comp in the mid and jungle, but in the end I can say Orianna or Syndra could have been a lot better pick for them because they were lacking so many damage. And KT Rollster had a very aggressive pick, Aurelia going over to top lane, but at the same time, they went for a very safe pick, Victor, which is a really good champion for Yukal, but still, there is not much harmony between these two solo lanes. When Afreeca finished their pick and bans, it was really hard for Aurelia to do damage up against their comp. So with that lead that Afreeca had in the early game, we thought Afreeca to win this game, but in the end, we kind of realized that Victor was really important for KT's comp. So let's take a look at some early game skirmish. And KT kind of slipped their early lead. Lilia had a very good Raptor fight prior to this one, and the contention went in favor of KT. And you know that Nidalee's life was almost over. You know, we saw he almost got executed by the Wolf Camp, but Blank pushes this issue forward. So even makes Yukal to join this fight, so he actually gives up all the minion wave down on the bottom lane, and also Yukal kind of hesitates to join this fight. And this Nidalee was able to actually come back online with that kill, and they were also able to force that flash out of Yukal. So it was a huge loss going over to KT Rollster. This kind of thing doesn't really happen in this matchup, but because Nidalee was so kind of done poorly in the early game, Lilia could go aggressively, but Victor is not a champion that can go for early game fights. So KT Rollster could have gone for a different early game plan. However, there were some moments where KT Rollster started to get their card started. Let's take a look at this highlight where they were able to pick up some of the kills. I think today we didn't have a lot of Kai'Sa games. Kai'Sa is a champion that can actually join the fight really fast based on her ultimate. So Afreeca, once again, they had this mid lane wave shoving in, so they were able to open fight and have the agenda to call the rest of the teammates. So it was a nice start for them, but at the same time, Nidalee actually rotated to the right-hand side of the fight because they had 3 of their members on the left-hand side. Maybe maybe Dread trusted on the rest of the teammates to finish up the kills on the left side, so he actually chases after the bottom duos of KT Rollster, but Keen actually became Mininar, so he was not able to get any more kills onto the opponent bot duo, and at the same time, we could see the power coming out from Victor and especially Irelia in this kind of extended fight. We had tons of skirmishes and it was definitely a bloody game, so it was a very confusing one, but still Afreeca Fricks was not able to close out the game, and KT Rollster was the one picking up that win in the end. So let's check out the player of the game who was able to shine in this kind of confusion. It was Doran on that Irelia. He got solo killed in the very beginning, but he was able to come back somehow. And this counter turret dive was really on point. And after he was able to get some multiple kills, Irelia was able to complete the items, and he was well fed enough to carry the game. And we also want to give a shout out over to Doran's itemization, because Rel was the only tanky frontline on the side of KT Rollster. He actually went for a very tanky item build in order to kind of compensate the some late game tankers on the front lines. And as Kuro mentioned earlier, Kai'Sa was the only one to do damage onto Irelia, so Irelia could just infinitely just build up the armors. That was a very smart itemization plan coming out from Doran. Doran picked up 6 for 9 for this POG, and Yuka was able to pick up some of the votes as well.